Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and today I have two very special guests with me. I want to thank Colton and Paul from Smash Up Data for joining. Smash Up Data has been around for about 2 years, and it's growing in the number of games that it's collecting. It's definitely designed to provide analytics to new people, to provide some interesting thoughts for experienced players. There's a lot that they can accomplish with this site. I'm really glad that they're going to be able to talk with me today. Colton and Paul, thank you so much for joining. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. So my name's Colton. I go by Hansel in the Discord. And I kind of chose this persona, this card in Smash Up because I'm German, well, German heritage. I'm from the US. And I love pretzels. If they had a beer on there, that'd be better. But yeah, so that's why I chose Hansel. I guess my background in general is tech. I'm in tech. I worked at a large tech company the last 10 plus years. And one of my passions is kind of delving into data and analyzing things and kind of providing solutions with data and whatnot. Regarding Smash Up, I tend to lean towards factions that have more of a support play style because then I don't know, I just like having fun interactions and things like that. That being said, kitty critters, most people would say blah. I think they're amazing. But that's probably my favorite faction, Swiss Army knife, and they're amazing.
It's really funny because a lot of people don't understand how indie critters work, and they admit to it. That they're like, I don't see it. And it's like, they're great. I just think it's getting better and better.
Yeah, lots of groans on the other side of the table. You're like, oh, that one again. Oh, that one again. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Paul. I go by Dork Orc in the Discord, and I thought the avatar was appropriate. Most people don't see him smiling, but I see him as a little dude getting the job done no matter what. So kind of fits my affect. I'm a professional Power BI consultant by trade, so it was a natural fit for Colton and I to extend our friendship into data and applying data to Smash Up. My play style is definitely more in the control style of play. I like big disruption. I like strange left curveballs out of nowhere. I like making your turns feel very awkward, even at the expense of my own sometimes. And so Russian fairy tales is my go-to. I play them a lot, and I mean, mass transformation is so fun. Like, who doesn't love a big, bold mass transformation out of nowhere?
We were actually talking about that yesterday among some friends and I, that mass transformation is their most underrated card, and then if used appropriately, can completely wreck somebody. Like, oh, I've got to shoot. No, I don't.
They've been spending the whole game filtering for their big play, and setting up this huge turn, and then you just go nope. You just nope them.
And it's funny because my play style is I will hold on to a card all game long if I feel like I'm waiting for this moment. So I'm very susceptible to it. But I also always forget to reorder my cards before I put them on the bottom of my deck. So I'm just like, oh, like that. Like, wait a minute, like, hold on. Like, I've got my leader, let me put it on top. It happens all the time. It's hysterical.
Yeah. Oh, and that's fun. I think that's fun. And the game is great that way. So thanks for having me.
Of course. So there's a lot that we can cover in this topic. This may not just be a one shot because the field of data and analytics is massive. And there's a lot of opinions on what's the best way to do it. There's no clear right answer. It's a really rich field for discussion. So let's jump right into it, and then we'll cover as much as we can. And if we have to have you back, we'll have you back. What are you trying to accomplish with Smash Up Data? From where it started to where it is now and where you think it's going, what is the overall goal? How have you been doing it?
Yeah, good question. I'll kind of field that one, and Paul, feel free to hop in whenever. I guess starting with where it started or how it came about. Paul and I had a bunch of discussion, oh, this faction's the best. No, this synergy, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this faction's better. This one's more swarmy, things like that. And him and I both did a bunch of research and found that people were collecting data all over the place. Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Discords, literally everywhere, writing it down even. And, we kind of saw this. We're like, wow, there's so many, advocates for Smash Up. How can we bring this community together and have one place to kind of centralize everything? And that's kind of where we came up with the mission, which is like, growing the Smash Up community, centralizing data collection, and then presenting, rich game analytics, because that's what Paul and I, have some expertise around. Why not provide or give this opportunity to showcase some analytics, right, to the public. So that's kind of where it started, and that's kind of how we started looking at things. And I know, Paul, you can probably give more insights into the whole design of the system, since we spent
Yeah.
many hours designing it and going into details and reiterating on things. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. But we just hit our 10,000 view milestone, which is a fun number for us. I mean, it means the site is growing, more people are using it, more people are inputting their game data. We didn't start with very many games, as you might imagine. We're over 5,400 now, which is pretty awesome and counting. We're looking for more. So our hope is just to continue to see data come in, and just more and more data, different player counts, different some faction synergies are not scored, but some faction combinations have no representation on the site. So we need to fill in those gaps, right? So our hope is over time we have one of, if not the most sort of comprehensive source for your own data analysis if you want to come in and just check out the game from a data perspective.
That's really interesting. Let's talk about that a little bit more, because that's one of the interesting things about data, is that there's the data collection and the data analysis, and also making your data available so that other people can draw their own conclusions, as opposed to being, here's the conclusion, here's the data that backs it up. So if you're more of a data mining person, you could say, all right, this is available, you can add to it, you can run it through your own search engine and do stuff with it. I think that's really cool. I actually didn't know that was part of the goal.
Yeah, we from the beginning we said we're not going to force people to register or give us any information of any kind. You can download the backend for free, no strings attached, from our website. We want to grow the community. We want people to say, oh, look at this cool thing I found. What is that? Oh, it's this game Smash Up. Oh, let's play Smash Up. Hop in the Discord. We get more people playing the game. And we figured the best way to do that was just to give people the data that they're giving us. Not only that, I mean, we did have to sacrifice a few things to do that. I mean, you have to have some discipline around tracking your own games. So when you put the player name field in, that has to be consistent. But those are trade-offs we're willing to make, because we think the creative expression from the community is way more valuable than us trying to referee what qualifies as valuable.
Right. So let's talk a little bit more about data. Why do data analytics matter to both of you? And what specifically do you think is the most significant thing that data can tell you?
Wow. Yeah. Well, data is my career. So I've made it my career, not intentionally. I love telling stories and analyzing data. I've been an analyst my whole career, and I'm proud of the moniker. Some people think of us as trench workers, but I love taking a big pile of numbers and words and then helping people solve real world big problems with them. I helped the United Nations put a COVID-19 gender policy dashboard together that helped influence global policy in response to COVID-19. And that's nerds on spreadsheets with text, making a difference. And that's something that you can do with data in a way that is not, it's not accessible like right away to me. So I feel I've experienced the impact of data in lives, and it's only natural to kind of apply that to something a bit more fun and lighthearted, like a wonderful game like Smash It.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Paul. And on top of that, obviously growing the community with providing these analytics. Whether you're a beginner wondering, hey, what my favorite faction is, killer plants. That was a question I just saw today, and it's like, oh well, what pairs good with that? Let me go to this website and see what pairs good with that, right? Or finding out information. Paul is he hates vampires. You know, he's one of the few people that hates vampires. But then you look at the stats and you're like, wow, vampires are rated the least fun faction to play based on the data that's been submitted. And it's like, makes sense why Paul also hates them, right?
Yeah.
So stuff like that is very fun and intriguing.
It's nice to know that you're not the only one who feels a certain way, I guess, as well. Because when you're just an echo chamber of your own, game group, you'll miss things. Things get by you, and we wanted to reach out, and what do you know, the internet it was there waiting for us. So really just enriching our understanding of the game in a completely different way. Trying to have something to stand on that says, oh, this is good, or like this does well, or this will help, or those are hard statements to back up without any kind of firm footing.
Right, but that leads into the next question, which is, what does it take to be statistically significant? I mean, you said 5,400 games, right? Which is a lot, but if you were to divide that by the number of combinations, that'd be like one per combination, maybe 1.5. But of course, like having some data is better than no data, and you can't start building on top of it, and it's got to start somewhere. So like this is really important. But what's funny is that non-data people will draw conclusions from a very small sample size, and data people have to be disciplined to not do that, to say, okay, you know what, we need more things here. So how do you deal with some of those challenges of knowing, like, okay, we've now learned something? Have there been any indications where you've learned something, or you're close to seeing something that the data has told you?
Yeah. So you're absolutely right about the statistical significance. Less than around 10% of our games are 4-player games. So the game plays so differently between 2, 3, and 4 players. Some factions just fall off a cliff, while other factions have this meteoric rise. Like aliens, for example, when you look at the data, aliens have something we have a metric called better than expected. It's basically win rate less your random chance of winning. So if you're in a 2-player game, any one faction has a 50% random chance of winning, right? So if you win 60% of your 2-player games with that faction, then you have a BT, a better than expected, of 10%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so aliens in 2-player games went from 16% better than expected, down to 10% in 3-player games, down to 2% in 4-player games. So that gimmick of recurring your victory points, you don't get that privilege as frequently in a 4-player game. And we can see that in the data. We can back that up in the data. Another example would be steampunks. Well, that one surprised us. 2-player games, it has a negative BTE, so it was underperforming random chance, and then almost by a factor of 2, or rather, it goes up to 11% in 4-player games. So it went the opposite direction, and we might have, there's a story there that we're still trying to piece together, and it comes back to that discipline around like what's statistically significant, but it gives you a starting point, right? It gives you a place to start and say, okay, there's a thread here. Let's keep pulling on it.
Yeah. So the aliens case is really interesting because it jives with what we would expect. If you were to ask a random person, do aliens do better in 2-player or 4-player? They'd say 2-player, no question. But having data to back it up gives you a confidence model, because you'd be like, here's my model, and it's entirely wrong. What you kind of need is an easy win to say, yeah, what we're doing makes sense, and that lends a little bit more credence to the steampunk, which kind of catches me by surprise. I'm not sure that I would necessarily believe it. However, what does well in 4 players? Movement and a large power drop, and steampunks have both of those.
Yeah. And they also have a gimmick that's difficult to interact with. So like the playing actions on bases, there's not a lot of cards that interact with that ability too.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that that we can pull out. I mean, if I asked you a question like, here's a weird question.
Mhm.
You're in a 3-player game, and it's your choice to draft the first faction. You have no idea what your partner faction is. You have no idea what the other factions are going to be. You just know it's a 3-player game. What faction do you choose to give yourself the best advantage?
Okay, so it's an open set, potentially anyone, like not restricted.
Non-restricted. You can pick any faction you want.
Okay, I'd have to go with my number one rock stars because they're pretty insulated from almost everything. They can be vulnerable to Eliza as a counter, but they have movement to compensate for it, and they're just extremely consistent. They don't have the highest upside of the other ones, but they have an extremely low floor. And my play style is, I want to be here, not necessarily here. Whereas like, when I want to win, I want to accentuate the high floor.
That's good. That's very reasoned. And we would be able to go on our website, go to this faction ranking by BTE and player count. And I can see that Rockstars have a 4% BTE in 3-player games. So they do better than random chance in 3-player games and would be a pretty strong opening contender. So yeah, we would support that. We would support your reasoning. And we also have the historical data to help back that up too.
Who would you check? Who would you choose?
Well, the data says elves.
Elves.
Surprisingly, now there's not enough. There aren't quite enough games. There's let's see here. How many games do we have with? Well, we have 45 games played with elves in 3-player, which isn't a ton.
Not bad,
Okay,
but-
it isn't a ton, but it's not terrible either. It's not nothing. And they turn out to have a 22% BTE. So this is where we're trying to go. Like these are the kinds of things that we're trying to expand and grow on. And as we get more data, we'll be able to answer just really kind of strange questions like that.
Right. Elves are great. I actually prefer them in 2-player, just because it's a lot easier to force people into what you want to do. With 3 players, it's a little bit of a wild card, but they are also very strong. And I know a number of people who say, yeah, elves in 3 players is their strongest player count. So like as long as the data showed it going up, I'm fine with it because I love elves.
Yeah, elves is definitely underrepresented in pick rate. If you're not playing elves because you think they're bad, give them a try, please. Give them a try. They're awkward, yes, but you might have fun. You might actually have fun.
Right. Now, what you've built is great, and it's just the start. How can the community help? What's the next step? What should the community be doing in order to add to Smash Up data, and how should they be using it in ways that they don't even know?
Yeah, I think that's an easy question to answer. Basically, if you just go to smashupdata.com, there's a nice community tab there. And on that community tab, you can kind of see the different areas where they can submit their different, synergies, faction rankings, set, like their favorite set, things like that, their game data, things like that. There's also the support us page that has like our Instagram, Facebook, Discord server in there where people can, join our Discord and ask us questions, or even make requests on, I kind of want to see this data, or hey, I don't see this data on the site. Do you have this kind of data? And we can work with them to figure that out. That's kind of what the community can do, I guess, now, right? And obviously, the more data we have, the more games we record, the more synergies we get, things like that. The more accurate our data is going to be. So the community really, is driving the accuracy for what we provide.
And the content too. So there's a way to submit feedback. I'm sure there's going to be an opportunity to check out the YouTube comments as well and see, what people might have thought of the website and what ideas they might have. But please feel free to, reach out to us on the Discord channel, which is available through the website, of course, and through the website itself. This is your data as much as it is ours. So if you see an opportunity to ask a question that the data is not answering for you, we can help you find it. And if it's not there, we can help make it for you. How's that?
Yeah,
that makes sense. I do have a couple of rapid fire questions that we'll just get into. So what do you think is the most important data point that you collect?
Hmm.
That's a good question.
The most important data point.
In regarding games or just factions or
That
what?
well, there's different. So the reason that's tricky to answer is that
Yeah.
there's sort of compartments of how we analyze the game. So there's performance, and I would probably from the performance perspective, it's just which factions and which ones won. That would
Turns
be like
played, time,
right,
stuff like that.
like the most important would be like which factions played the game and which one won, if we could only pick one. And then there's what do cards do? Like how do you actually talk about the game, and like how do you code cards for how they actually impact the game? That's a whole nother methodology that we'll need another video for.
But yeah, I'm specifically trying. I know you've got this great system in place for analyzing cards and what they have in terms of categories. We don't have time for that, unfortunately.
We don't.
Sure, no.
Yeah.
See, I think turns is a big one. How quickly did a faction win, right? In a 2-player game, are they averaging 15 turns, or are they averaging 20? Is it 5 turns? Things like that. And how quickly did they scale? Like, okay, in 3 turns, I got 12 VP. That was because they played their 3 big powerful plays or something like that,
point.
right?
That's a good point.
Right. Do you do anything for any of the problematic bases like Rhodes, Plaza Mall, or Factory?
So this kind of falls into the skill level question. We don't have any controls in place for whether the games were played with the correct rules, like what the skill level of the players are. It's kind of the same bucket. The game we just take as a whole at the end of the game. We just the total VPs, so no controls for any particular bases.
Right. And that's really all that you can do, and rely on people to do. There's a responsibility from the community to input data not only in a sanitary way but also in a usable way. Like if you're playing with this crazy variant, like there's people who only play with 2 bases in 2-player, and I don't understand why at all. It's like that would wreck every movement faction. It's like explorers are terrible. They should get a Titan because my rules, the way I play the game.
Oh no.
No, we won't put out the extra base 2 only,
So here's another question. And since you're looking at the data live, you can probably tell me, who does the data suggest needs a Titan?
Ooh. You want to take a stab at that first, Colton?
Who does the data suggest needs a Titan? Now that's a good question. I actually don't have the data pulled up here, but I can look. What do you have?
I don't know. We have never asked that question. We have honestly never asked that question. So
well, it would be based on expected to lose, because that's what it's about.
Yeah, but you'd also want to think like, what should the Titan do, right? Like, what is it compensate? Is it building on a strength? Is it compensating for a weakness?
Is it a new gimmick? Is it
you are triggering me a lot, because I could do a whole lecture about how Titans go about that versus accentuating strength versus filling a weakness.
Right.
So that's a great question.
Yeah. So that
Cowboys. Yeah. That's my shot.
Cowboys. I was actually gonna say Samurai, but that's
similar.
Yeah, it's similar kind of idea.
And so, does the data support Cowboys should get a Titan?
It's honestly,
we could make it work. Support it.
No, no. Honestly, Jim, I have no idea how to answer that question with the data right now.
Yeah. We'll have to come back to that one. The last one is kind of a hard one, and it's just a closing thought. Just give me your gut reaction. But if faction is in 100% of the game it plays and gets credited with 100% of the win, even though it may not do anything. I've told the story numerous times about Grims in one particular version. I played Rockstar Grims. I played 1 Grim card. Teamwork. That was it. And Rockstars did the rest. And Grim got the win. And it was like their only win that I'd ever gotten with them at that point, because they were awful. But it's like they won the game. But it's like, yeah, well, so did the backup catcher on my baseball team who didn't play in the World Series.
Yeah.
So, from a data perspective, is there anything that you can do to sort of insulate against that?
There is. It requires a lot more data. So to do that, we actually need to look at the combinations, and we can't just look at one faction individually. We'd actually need to look at the combinations to control for something like, you know, the contribution of a particular faction.
What was drawn, what was played, all sorts of stuff. What bases are out, right?
Yeah, but it's much easier to answer the other direction, which is like, what faction doesn't need really anything else to do the job? Like geeks, basically. Like geeks, like really, they're good. They're good. You probably don't have to play too many of your faction's other cards. They need some, but generally geeks is going to get the job done for you.
You know, I think Knights is another one that is just OP in my opinion. Like amazing though. I love them. Don't get me wrong. I love them, but overpowered currently.
Okay.
Right. And
go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, and when we did our card analysis and we looked at the different play styles of the factions, Knights turned out to have one of the most well-rounded card group like play styles in the game. They can just do so much so well. It makes sense.
I am so happy that you brought that up, because where do I want to start here? Okay, so from what I know, Knights were deemed too strong in 2 players and needed a buff in multiplayer, which I honestly don't understand. Like, conceptually, I can see why people would think that, but empirically, I would not expect that to be the case. But how do you make someone stronger in 3-player or 4-player without making them stronger in 2-player? It's very difficult to do. And does 4-player even matter? You know, I've described 4-player as being Super Smash Brothers with the items turned on high. Yeah, a random person can win.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and sometimes somebody has no fun at all. We had a game like that pretty recently where
someone had aliens, right?
Yeah, and they didn't get to play.
They didn't get one invader. They got like 2 VP the whole game. I was like, that sucks, man.
Yeah, it felt bad. Yeah, it would have to be something that scales like with the number of players, right? You get +1 for each other player's minion at this base. It has to be something like that.
But I also wonder, and this is where data would be so crucial, because Smash Up does use data for playtesting, but it's not on the scale that, you know, there's the custom faction people, no disrespect, but they play it like a couple of times, like, yeah, that's balanced. No, it isn't. And then, you know, the Smash Up, which has more of a range here, but then there's the community wide that, you know, once you really turn it loose to people, that's when you start getting the full range. And I didn't test Knights, but like they got pretty crazy quickly. And I'd be curious, because I'd want to know more about who they're playing against when they're not doing well. Because I kind of feel like when you're play testing someone, you're specifically playing to try to counter them. And there's almost like this focus on, I don't want new faction to win, because that would not be considered balanced. So I'm going to bring everything I have. Like when you look at a card like Guinevere, it makes no sense that Guinevere would get a buff to have protection against actions. What that tells me is that they kept getting played against factions that can destroy actions on bases. And that's not really representative, because it's you letting the counter drive the discussion. And so
yeah no yeah, the data is coming together on them. Like we're still getting games in. We have 69 games with Knights in there, but we are starting to see that sort of 3-4 player tail. I think it's really card dependent. One of your videos you talked about a game of getting to your powerful cards quickly, and that might be, as you get into 3 and 4 player, more relevant for Knights. Like Merlin's library does so much work. It's a crazy card, and getting that out early, it's a must remove card for your opponents. So I think maybe in multiplayer, certain factions, certain cards are more valuable than others. And like you said, the counters become even more accentuated, because the relevance of that particular card to that faction's game plan becomes more and more important.
Right.
Yeah, like you were saying before, who would I take? I want to take based on my game plan. I don't really want someone to be like, okay, he picked this, so I have to pick this, because then it becomes a game theory problem of like, okay, who's got the advantage here? Because no matter what I do, you could just immediately undo it, and then I have to pick something to either salvage what I picked. That's why I go with the the low floor. It's like no matter what you do, I'm feeling pretty good about this.
Right.
In that Whirlpool tournament we played in, we used our data to help us draft the factions, and we fell into and out of that trap that you're talking about, which was like, oh, they picked this, should we counter it or should we pick a threat?
Right.
Yeah, that decision we bounced between.
Was that the Discord tournament? Because I heard I heard that they were using Smash Up data during it, and then it actually turned out pretty well.
Well, we did at least.
Okay.
well, we did, and they posted it in Discord, and then we put it on the website.
Right.
Nice.
And that's why I kind of, to answer your first question again, itty critters, baby. Love the itty critters.
Yeah, I mean, they have a tool for the job somewhere in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one bans them. No one cares about them.
And then Rainbow Rock swoops in, and they're
yeah.
like, "Oh wait, that's actually."
Let's keep it going.
So last year I did an April Fool's video on Titans with power and how they were changing the rules because, and of course this is all made up, but like Titans with power to me are like the number of times I've been screwed by a 1 power Rainbow Rock giving you presents, and there's nothing I can do about it. I would love to see that quantified over time, because when you look at Rainbow Rock's ability, the shuffling is really good, but the fact that it's a mobile 1 power that can pretty much guarantee VP, I'd really love to see data on Titans, and that's why I asked who needs one. There is a sentiment that Cowboys need one. I know that Lonan, who's probably watching this, has made a custom Cowboy Titan. So
what would it be?
It was pretty good actually. Lonan's looked pretty balanced from visually looking at it, not playing with it.
Would it just be a giant mound of dynamite? Like, would it just what is that actual Titan?
What's more than a sheriff, right?
Yeah, what's bigger than a sheriff?
I think it was like a legendary bounty hunter or something like that.
Oh,
gotcha.
Okay.
And the ability was specifically to prevent duels from being nullified.
Right.
Oh.
Because they're so easy to get out of, right? It's like, oh, let me just move away. Cool. Later.
Yeah. How many times you've done that to me so many times?
Now that's, probably a topic for another time, but that's kind of a next step evolution, the metadata between different factions. And for the audience who may not be as familiar, metadata would be kind of drilling into the specifics of an individual faction and saying, okay, who did you select? I selected Innsmouth and I selected Kaiju, for example. And it's like, did you play your Titan? Because if you play with Gorgonzola versus Dagon, you may get different results. With a Titan-based faction, you might say with the Explorers, did you actually play the Titan? If you're playing Knights, how many extra VP? That is something that is critical. Tracking the bonus VP. You can do that with aliens too. It's like I'm playing time traveling aliens, and I'm getting like 11 points from invaders.
Right.
That's amazing.
Wouldn't you love to have that number for your Masters of Evil conversations? Like how well are they actually doing with that job?
We actually made that suggestion towards the end of the play testing for them to say, like, how many bonus VPs are you getting? Because it was not making mathematical sense. And when people started tracking it, that's when you really started to see the cracks in the frame, and they had to get some adjustments. But I'm saying for Smash Up data, that would be something that would be really cool to really drill on and have faction specific questions that are relevant.
Yeah.
Who do you think, besides Master of Evil, who would benefit from that a lot?
That kind of
microanalysis.
My God, we would love to put like everything like on a form, but we had to just machete our way through it, or else people won't fill it out, you know.
Yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah, that's
You
the
know,
tough part, right?
but what you do bring up, we are in collaboration with another community member. I don't know, Colton, maybe you want to talk about it. I don't know how much.
Yeah, so kind of regarding the future, I know that was an earlier question. A couple things that we're looking into is building a mobile app, because submitting these things through InfoPath forms or whatever form is kind of a pain in the butt. But yeah, having a mobile app, it's just much easier. That's one thing for the future that we're looking into. Another thing was regarding Tabletop Simulator. Most people with the COVID-19 pandemic started playing online. Paul and I, we used to play in person. Now we're across the country. We can still play. But yeah, one of our community members by the name of Mervil, you may or may not have heard his name or seen him in Discord, but he's building a wonderful tabletop simulator app or mod that is fully scripted, and it will also be submitting data to the Smash Up Data website. So we'll get a lot of games from that, hopefully, with people using that mod.
I knew he was doing a scripted mod. I didn't know that he was doing it for analytics with Smash Up Data. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I've got some questions, because there's like programming, then there's really people who are really good at programming, and then there's scripting in Tabletop Simulator, where it's like I can't figure it out. Like I know like 9 languages and I can't figure that out.
I can't get these images to rotate to the
the luau, whatever.
Yeah, it's luau.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at it. I was actually going to build my own app, and then Mervil, somehow pinged me, or I pinged him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm building this app, blah blah blah." I was like, "Oh my gosh, would love to play test it for you," which we've done a few times. And then he's like, "Oh, would love to be able to contribute to your site and get these games uploaded." I'm like, "Sweet, dude, let's work together." Granted, he's done all the work. We've only plays it. He's done everything.
Yeah, it does absolutely everything.
So big shout out to him for sure.
But so what's interesting about Tabletop Simulator is that it widens your player base, because for people who submit data, if they keep playing the same person, then there's an implicit bias in there based on their personal play style that could impact the data. But one of the nice things about Tabletop Simulator is that I went from playing, maybe the 30 people that I knew who had played Smash Up, every now and then to all sorts of levels. So now I can play anybody all over the world, and it basically sanitizes the data, because it removes that same player bias over and over again.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
people
definitely.
play this game all over the world.
Yeah.
We translate games from the French community. We translate game like their notes and their facts. We do that work. So
a little broken in
and
the translation, but
the metas are different. They have very different perspectives on the game and like what's good and what wins tournaments over there.
Well, this has been awesome. Is there anything you want to say as a wrap up about Smash Up Data?
question.
Check it out. We'd love to hear.
Check it out.
We'd love to hear your ideas, your feedbacks. How can we help? What do you want to see? It's a work in progress. We're not done.
Yeah.
We're not done. So
stepping stones.
Yeah. So if you want to throw us a couple words, that's awesome. We'd really appreciate it.
The other thing I was going to add to that is that data collection is never actually done. You build an engine and then you constantly learn from it, and conclusions will change, because you never know, things get unlocked. Innsmouth is a classic example. It was extremely overlooked as a faction. Then some guy played it that one time, and now everybody's talking about Innsmouth.
That's why I keep plugging Indie Critters, man.
Yeah, I see what he's doing. Yeah,
it's actually mind-boggling with Indie Critters, because I admit to not getting them right away, and then I saw the potential, and I'm now in love with Critter Champion. But
Pokemon, baby.
It's.
Are you gonna say?
Yeah. Well, what I was gonna say was that, like, one of my things that I look for is, how often does somebody say, "I don't get X"? So factions that people really don't like verbally indicate they don't understand: Indie Critters, Ancient Egyptians, Russian fairy tales. Those are the 3 ones. Well, it used to be Innsmouth, but I think Innsmouth has been pretty saturated now. Ancient Egyptians I totally get. You'd be amazed at how many people don't know the burying rule, and that you can uncover at the start of your turn. Like, so like talk about data. Like, that's something you may want to take a second look at. did you uncover cards at the start of your turn?
Mm.
Russian fairy tales, I get it because of the way that you can play them to help yourself, to hurt somebody else. I get that. But itty critters, it's like, what are they not getting about this?
Yeah, it's not an obvious game plan. It really isn't. Like
No.
it's just, here's your stuff, you know, go have fun in this sandbox of little critters, and
Right,
and I hope it all works out.
Is it the theme? Is it that the theme is so attractive to new players that new players like, oh, I want to play Pokemon, and they grab itty critters and they're like, I don't know what to do here.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like, whether you play something just to get it out of your hand, or do you
Just
keep right, just to
put it
cycle
back
it, just to
and
put
not
it-
have it in play. It's like,
Yeah.
weird.
it's a strange Colton plays them like really well. Like the way he plays them, I don't feel like I get him. I don't play him at that level.
Calicoin, baby. It's all about Calicoin.
Yeah, that's
No,
the go-to.
Not really.
Blue Fairy.
For sure.
The floof.
Blue Fairy and Tadport.
Yeah. But it's funny because we have on the Smash Up Data website, we have kind of an effect breakdown, which I know we'll get into, another time potentially. Maybe.
No, we absolutely will. I mean,
Okay.
there's a whole section of card tagging that we haven't gotten to. And I know I've said like we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
This to the audience, this happens. This is fun. Like I could do this forever, but I unfortunately can't. We got to make sure that people actually watch it. It's like, here's a 3-hour video.
Yeah. I could have played games the whole time. Of data, yeah.
Of data methodologies.
Yeah. There's so much I really want to support and say thank you to the work that you're doing. To our community, please check out Smash Up Data. I'll be sure to put a link in the description. We're going to call this part 1 of some future clever name that I'll come up with now on the spot. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Colton, so much for joining today.
Thank you, James.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a real pleasure. Thanks for all you do for the community as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's shut it down.